Okay, peoples. Well, due to the random things that I never quite got rid of after my uncle died, sheets of glass, and I've got a damn washing machine still sitting up near the front door and all that, and little miss telling me that you need to mow the front lawn. I've decided to have a bit of a clean out, and these last lame things that have been hanging around here for the last 2 years, I thought, that's it. We've got to move them all out. Instead of just continuously having them there and sort of finding a reason to do everything else. I've got a good ass kicking in on the weeds. In recent days after work, I go and give them a little spray and might spend an hour or so, hour and a half or more spraying weeds. And I've got on top of the weeds reasonably well for the time being. And you may notice there's a bit of smoke coming this way. But what I've been doing is getting those big piles. There's your blue tarp. There's a pile there, and there's a pile here, and then another pile there. And, well, they made it into a big stack. And, well, needless to say, there's a lot of stuff with fungi on it, and just rotten odds and sods and complete bloody mulch-grade rubbish. So I'm just burning all that crap. Just getting rid of it all. Look at some of these things. I mean, it's all like sawdust. Cockroaches get into it, and it's the rain first rots them, and then the cockroaches, and then it's pretty much just rubbish. Here's what I was talking about when I said about underground tunnels with something over the top. This is what the rabbits have done underneath the stack here. So they're protected by the stack of wood, which is sort of probably insulated them from the frosts and whatnot, and they've just dug tunnels through and live underneath the wood stack. And the other wood stack next to the cardboard house has actually got the same thing, but I haven't moved all that wood, and all that wood is actually primarily just about perfect, most of it. Well, pretty damn good anyway, a lot better than Crumblyville here. But yeah, that's I wanted to show you the design of this thing anyway. That's basically, a lot of these used to have a plough bottom, and he had another one that I thought had a plough disc here instead. Anyway, he's got a few legs welded on, and as you might be able to notice, there's 3 holes in the bottom of that are sort of dropping out ash and crap. And there's a whole bunch of holes around the side of this, and this is all about 1/8 inch steel, like 3 mil, 3.5 mil, something like that. Probably just 3 mil, but 1/8 of an inch is about 3.5, so that gives you a rough idea of how thick it is. And yeah, it draws air in from the bottom and then comes up at the top, and the radiant heat coming off that, that's probably about as close as I can put my hand with the warmth there. Yeah, I'm just throwing all this junk in here because, quite honestly, to burn it on a whole heap of ground here without the oxygen coming underneath and all the water still, moisture still in it, it's probably not going to burn at all. So I decided I need to get it a little bit elevated and have, this would be the best way to go. He actually went to become a local councillor, and all the other people turned up there on a blustery blimmin' cold day, and it ended up getting rained out the whole blimmin' campaign, but they all turned up there and in coats trying to hand out their pamphlets, and he thought, well, stuff this. He pre-thought about all this the morning as he got up, and he thought, geez, cold. So he decided to throw this exact unit in the back of his car, and when the rain and all the bullshit started up and the wind was blowing, one of the first things he done, it turned up there, I think probably a few minutes later than everyone else, which was usually his style. First thing he done was lit this up. And all of a sudden he had a whole stack of people that was like a captive audience that he could tell his policies to, because they were all hanging around this, which was the only heater in the place at the time, because of course it was being held outside, and he was the only one that had enough foresight to bring a wood heater, because he realised what the weather was like, and then saw it sitting there and thought, you know what, I'll take this. And the campaign worked, and he came a very close second, very close, maybe only 20 votes or 25 votes or something, out of a shire, but yeah, anyway. Well, I got stuck right into all the crap, and I tried to burn some of it, and the rest I put in the bin, and I've still got a couple of garbage bags full here. Basically, we're scraping them back to pretty much bare ground with little traces of sawdust still behind. This has been running for ages now. It's thrown quite a number of coals underneath, and it's probably a good idea that I put it on the concrete. Yeah. We have also been doing a bit of tractor work. I'm pulling out a bit of this gangly old chicken wire. Some of the stuff is real old school stuff. My father could identify because it's not a hexagon shape, it's actually like two lines and then almost like triangle between them all, sort of thing. But I'll show you where we dragged all that out. Here it is out here. Now basically I've got to let the grass dry out a bit and probably kick the remainder of the dirt out or give it a thump with something, bit of 4x2 to get the dirt out. Then I'm most likely to put them in that old red truck there, I don't know if you can see it, and put a match on the dead grass that's in there while it's in the back of the steel tray of this diesel truck. You also may notice there's a little bit more here that needs cleaning up. What was here that was so large, you may ask? Well, it was this trailer. This trailer has been sitting there since about 1998, I believe. And believe it or not, pumped the tyres up and they stayed up without a problem. This was originally going to be like a giant caravan, or more or less like a tiny home of a type or something along those lines. I think just a giant caravan. As you can see, it's bloody enormous. I'll stand up here on the tow hitch. I mean, she's a big machine. But it's been twisted, or it was never built quite right, and yeah, when you see it driving along you realise well, it was never really turned into anything. The fact of the matter is it probably turned into nothing because my uncle didn't really have much motivation. Always start something and never finish it, but an electric motor here, 3-phase, still spins, but I doubt it's really worth it anymore. I don't even know what the hell that is. It might be a wheel weight of some sort. Anyway, we used this after we cleared a lot of the gear off it to move, well, what remains of the super dish. To be quite honest, some of the wood here was a little bit too rotten and it pulled out of the screws. Well, failing that, we pushed it a little bit too hard, wiggled it around a bit too much for it to handle. I don't know, I got a funny feeling if I do something like this next time, it may actually be with brand new steel, because to be honest, the strength of this stuff compared to the ungainliness and the weight and the fact that sort of wood that was sitting under cypress trees that were dropping all the leaves on it, you know, the little fine leaves of those sort of trees, and yeah, some of it sort of rotted a little bit, like so, and I really question the quality of some of these bits of wood, and with some bad bits and some good bits, I think the whole show might actually be sort of compromised. And well, if it wasn't before, it is now, as you might also notice. One there's coming apart, and that one come out as well, and so did that. So this might just be a big pile of bloody firewood at the end of the day. So the thing about hardwood, it's very strong, but if it's been sitting out in the weather since 1998, it tends to, you know, go a little bit rotten and whatnot, and doesn't, I don't know if you can see that, but it doesn't sort of look the best, and it's a little bit soft. So many years out in the weather, and add to that the phenomenal weight of hardwood compared to softwood, and well, yeah. Anyway though, if we do all this in future, we may end up doing it in steel, but yeah, I got a lot of other things that really need attending to that are more important than playing around with this, unfortunately. How's this? It's like a blooming cricket ground. I mean, the grass is that short out here. It's probably no more than about half an inch short. This is around my almond trees. This is where the sheep seem to love hanging out. And that's where you can see all the individual little rocks. Because they love chewing this down really low. You know, I can even see a piece of wire there. Usually wouldn't find that very easily. Anyway, while the tractor was here, there's a couple of the other ones I got out. Oh, actually I cut that one off. But this one was pulled out with a full drive, pretty blasted hard on the vehicle, to be honest. And while the tractor was here, pulled this one out as well. She's a pretty big one. You may wonder why I've left it so high. Well, that's part of the leverage effect. We found this out when we were pulling out African boxthorn about a year or so back or more. And if you leave it reasonably high, you don't tie around the base because you'll never bloody get anywhere. What you do is you tie up around the top, and then the leverage effect helps pull it out a lot easier. And I mean, instead of going like hell and flipping, digging holes in the ground and all that sort of crap, you know, which we done with stuff that was a lot smaller, maybe only 6-inch diameter stuff that was live, yet, you know, look at the diameter of this at the base. It's bloody nearly 2-foot diameter at the base. And, oh, look, it hasn't been dead any more than, well, about 6 months, I suppose. And this popped straight out like it didn't mean a damn thing, pulling with the exact same tractor. I just sort of wrapped the train around there, just above the fork, and chunked straight out. No big deal at all. And I sort of cracked it off, and then I said, we'll drive forward another couple of feet so we can make sure that it's actually broken the roots off on this side here. And so that's what he done. And I'll probably give all this a bit of a poke or the shovel or a bit of a kick and get all the dirt to break away from it. It should be better when it gets a bit more dried out. And cut it off about here. And use that for firewood, and then you leave this to sit for a winter to wash the dirt off, the same as it has with these. And as this video footage keeps changing resolution, but have a look at this. See little sparkles in there? All like glitter through the oil. That's the lawnmower here. This was my grandparents' lawnmower, and well, 3 years later, less than 3 years later after they bought it, they were in a nursing home, and they didn't use it much when they had it because the previous one got stolen. But yeah, that is what it looks like when you have your initial oil change. You get all the sparkles through it. This is the first time the oil's been changed on this thing, and I had trouble getting it going. And well, that's your air intakes. They were chocked up with flipping dust and grass fibre and When I did get it going, I'd noticed there was a lot of blooming black smoke blowing. And I thought, I think this thing's running rich. And like so many other things, when they run rich, it's a blocked air filter. And what they have is they have a breather come from the sump up near the air filter, and then if it gets a bit blocked, it ends up sort of sucking oil up from the sump, or failing that, the oil from the sump is what causes it to get blocked, causes it to get sticky, and then of course it holds all the flipping dust on that oil, and then you're stuffed. But I've got a new one of those too that's about to go on it, and I've also got to change the oil on the generator too today. Alrighty, this is how I change the oil on the generator. Sorry if the wind's getting the microphones blowy a bit. Good wooden blocks just to sort of elevate it a bit. You know, get it warmed up, get it running, and once it's warmed up pretty well, turn it off, put it on the wooden blocks, open the bung, and let it out into whatever container you got. It's actually cleaner oil than I thought it was going to be, but you're better to change your oil more often rather than less often, obviously to help the longevity of the engine.